everybody, Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the extraordinary honor and pleasure of catching up with bassist, both upright and electric, vocalist, producer, composer. This guy does it all. Hank Horton, yay!
Hey, Raul.
So,
Nice to be
Hank,
here.
as always, we like to go back to the past and find out how you began your journey. How did you get started in music and particularly on bass?
Well, both my parents were music teachers, so they started me on piano when I was 5. Took piano for 8 years, played drums, played guitar, played sax, played flute, sang, and I switched to bass back in the Jurassic era when I was 18 years old. And then I toured with some bands until I was about 25 and went back to school and then got a bachelor's and master's and worked on a doctorate in string-based performance. So I could, be a better reader, be a better musician. And mainly my goal was to never have to turn down a gig. Any gig that came along, I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why now I play rock and roll, I play jazz, I play with the Detroit Symphony when they need electric or acoustic, and do shows in the pit. I get called for sessions that, you need to read.
Yeah.
And you need to read really well. I did auditions for Cirque du Soleil, and I think I sent you a couple of those videos, and I have those on my YouTube channel. I auditioned for both bass and for vocals for Cirque.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it was mainly just to be a better player, musician, and, as they would say, well-rounded.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, and I'm sure having musician parents, especially with them teaching, they weren't going to let you get away without managing the theory and doing some of the hard work that a lot of us prefer to kind of skip.
Yeah, that's true. And yet they allowed me to learn things by ear as well,
Okay.
but they always just wanted me to be musical about it, and pick what I played. So, yeah.
Nice, nice. And with that said, again, with this immense versatility, I know currently you've been touring with Jeff Skunk Baxter, and
Correct.
that's more in the rockish zone.
It is, but there's a lot of elements of jazz in his music, like off
Okay.
his new album and stuff. And there's elements of country because he was with Steely Dan, Doobie Brothers, Dolly Parton, Donna Summer. He used to play one Monday a month in New York with Les Paul doing jazz. I mean, he's wide range. And he actually said recently, when I play with musicians that are classically trained, I always find that everything else makes it easy. Because we'll take off on the end of a song and just let it go where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And you'll hear people quoting classical pieces and jazz pieces, and all of that works, to your advantage to know all of that, so you can pull that out of your toolbox when you need it.
Indeed, indeed. And with that said, again, you've got such a versatile palette of things to choose from, and you're in a unique situation as well, because I think I almost can count them on one hand, people that are very good with as good on upright as they are with electric. Because as a matter of fact, there's been some upright players. One of my favorites, Reggie Workman, he is stuck with upright and is way into his 80s. And he basically told me, he says, I'm just going to leave the electric for Victor and these other guys. They can do that, but I'm going to stick here. It definitely allows you to do everything and anything you kind of want to. But
Sure.
do you have an area where you feel most comfortable and most at home, or now is it just fluent across the board?
It's pretty fluid across the board, but I mean, if you ask me what's my favorite music, I would say good music. If you ask me what's my favorite bass, whichever one I'm playing at that minute.
Nice.
If I really had to pin it down, the thing that I get called the most to do, like for sessions that there seems to be not that many people, is playing fretless. Because they have 4-string and 5 strings, because so many things these days, especially in the pit and even orchestrally, playing electric with the DSO, they're written for 5-string.
Mm-hmm.
So many years ago, I started having 5 strings and 5-string fretless and fretted. But playing fretless seems the easiest for me for some reason. I think back in 1975, I got an Alembic Series 2 fretless bass. I put my fretted jazz bass in the closet, and I think it's the only bass that I played for about 10 years.
Wow.
You know, because I could make it sound like a fretted, but you can't make a fretted sound like a fretless unless you're using a synth, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I had one night I was on a band. It was like a 18-piece show band or something like that, and we did a couple of sets. And I was sitting next to the trumpet player, and he looked over at me and he said, "Were you playing fretless last set?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I didn't even know that." I said, "Well, that's the kindest thing you could have ever said to me."
Nice, nice. Well, and as we're talking about gear, it would be good. I'm sure a lot of people are curious because you probably have to make things universal so that one setup will work for pretty much everything, because you can't necessarily go, well, I only have this amp for my upright and I can only use this amp for this. You have to have found something that works, because you've got to go places in a universal fashion. How are you getting your sound?
Well, and that's become a lot easier lately. And thank you for bringing that up. I recently, a few months ago, I think you see it right there. The Boss Katana 210.
Mm.
I actually went into a music store that had something else that I was going to look at, and I stumbled across this. It wasn't like because Skunk's been with Roland for 40 years, and Roland is, everybody in the band has Roland things. I have some pedals and things, but I didn't know about this, and I plugged it in, and I went, oh my gosh, this sounds great. And then I read all the things that it could do. Programmable EQ, all the bass effects built in, different kind of compressors, amp modeling. I just went, okay, I got to get this, and I have to try it. You know, I have to buy it, and I have to just dive into it. And one thing that's kind of funny is, you don't have to. You could use it just with the panel, but the programmable part, instantly I thought, if I can find that perfect EQ and compression for my acoustic bass, everything else is going to be easy. Because anytime you take an amp to a gig and you have to play acoustic or acoustic and electric, you have to look and say, okay, what was that nice sound I had last time? Well, with this, I hit patch number 1, and that's the sound.
Wow.
But you're not handcuffed with that, because everything on the panel still works. So if you get in a place where you're in a pit and there's a standing wave or a club or something like that, you can just go to the panel and tweak it. And unless you write that into the patch, the next time you turn the amp on, your patch is exactly like it was. You know, so it's not volatile that way. And so then finding sounds for the fretted and the fretless and some effects that I'm going to use, it's been a life changer for me, because you don't have to tweak it every time. You don't have to think about it.
Nice.
So that one amp can do everything I need it to do. And when I started using it, I went out with Skunk on a small tour, and I had 2 Rolands, 2 of the Katanas. And we quickly found that one of them would do the job. It would keep up with the drums, keep up with both of his blues cubes set on stun, and, everything else. And so this last tour, I just used one of them.
Nice. Sound
man loved it. Crew loved it. And if you need something bigger, you can just daisy chain them. You could add another one on, another one on, another one on. So if you do 4, then you have an SVT. But I tell you, you don't need it.
Gotcha. Just glancing at it, it is a combo, is it not?
It is. That's right. Pick it up and go.
Very cool. Very cool. And as far as you mentioned the daisy chain, could you run just straight speakers off of that? Does it have got enough power there to push, additional cabs if you didn't have the amps?
I don't know. Let me look. I don't think there's a speaker out, but there is a power amp in. So
okay.
if you have a different preamp, you can go into the power amp, because I'm sure everything is with the amp is made, for the speakers, like so many combos. But, street price on these things, it's crazy. It's probably different in different areas, but I think they're cheap at twice the price.
Wow. And weight wise, because I know so many people, especially as we all age, the days of giant amps and very heavy strings turns into a real concern, especially if you don't have someone else carrying it for you. What's the weight on that Katana?
I really don't know the spec, but I would guess somewhere between 40 and 50 pounds, maybe.
Okay.
You know, I'm 70. I can lift it and take it to the gig. I have another friend that's 70, bass player. He just bought one. He said, I'm loving this thing.
Nice.
And he doesn't like to carry heavy stuff either.
Very good. Very good. So in addition to that, and that's a spectacular start, bass-wise, how are you getting your sound? What instruments are you playing on?
Well, there's a acoustic back there. It's a Wilfer that I restored because I also restore basses and work on them because I own them. So I learned a long time ago how to fix them myself. So I do it for some other people. And then I'm kind of a big Schecter guy, not because I endorse them or anything, but they just fit my hand.
Nice.
Like this is their Silver Mountain 5-string with the Fishman Fluence pickups, which sound awesome. And then just another example of a Schecter. This is a fretless 5-string.
Nice.
It has the training wheel lines on it because they didn't have one without it. And as you probably could tell by the neon strings, I use DR strings on everything and have since 1991 when Mark came up to me at the NAMM show and said, hey, you want to try some strings? And actually, I found out when I joined Skunk's band that he uses them too and has, for that long.
Very, very cool.
So that's a couple. There's one other one since you're a bass player and your audiences are bass players.
Ooh.
Recognize that?
Yeah.
That's a Paul Reed Smith 5-string.
Nice.
From the first year they made them. And the year is a 85/86 because they came out at the end of 85. And it was the same model the next year. Nice. And I played this one for a long time too. And I still do, I think the yellow strings look good on the magenta body.
They do. It's real contrast. Well, the only thing the strings do is a lot of times I'll say the giveaway of what kind of bass is either looking at headstock and or fretboard. And Paul Reed does unique fret markers. And so you kind of miss them because of the neon strings. So it took me a moment going, oh, wait, I see the fret markers. So I know what we're looking at here.
Yeah, those are the half moon fret markers and not the birds.
Exactly. Yeah. Very cool. And do you have, I'm sure, especially with a lot of the Broadway shows, they will have specifics as far as pedal boards and how they want you to get your sounds. But do you have kind of the standard, your go-tos when it comes to pedals?
Well, I was using the Sansamp for overdrive.
Okay.
And the Boss Octapedal, OC3 or something like that, I think it is, for octave. And that's, except for maybe some chorus or something like that, which I have a Boss chorus pedal, that's the ones that I would usually use. I also, a lot of times I have a couple of Avalon U5s preamps for DIs as well. But the DI on this Katana is almost equal to that Avalon.
Nice.
And if I was going to use this, if I needed to do all those effects, I would take the Katana and I'd give them a feed off it because you can turn the wattage down to really low or off. So you can just use the preamp. So they're all in here, everything that they would want. And I could program them, instead of trying to find the pedals in the dark, and do the little dance of the pedal board, I would just look at, because I've done shows that are like 60, 70 pages long.
Oh, wow.
One was 99 pages long once. And I would program my live set, which is another thing. You can program in 6 presets at once, but you can do multiple live sets. Like I have 2 different scenarios for Skunk's stuff. I have another one for fretted and fretless. I have another one for acoustic, fretted, and fretless. And then if I was going to do a show, I would lay it out so I could have the pedal board change to the effects in order, going through the score. So that would be great too.
Nice. Well, it sounds like it can very much simplify what you need to have with you. And nowadays there's so many things that you have to learn all the details to. If you could just learn it well for one thing.
Right.
I barely know how to use all the stuff my car has. And so, I mean, heaven forbid, many amps there.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not the greatest at computer things or stuff, and I've never hooked up a bass amp to a computer before I got this. And so when I got it, it says update your firmware. So I hooked it up. My wife came in and I'm just sitting here and she says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm updating the firmware on my bass amp." I said, "That's something I've never said in my life."
Indeed.
And then it also has Bluetooth. So you have the app on your phone or the app on your computer or a tablet. So then if I go like with Skunk and I have 2 amps that don't have my sounds in it, I just download them from my phone in about 10 seconds. And then my pedal board is all laid out. The amps have my sounds.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
But what I told one guy, I said, you get your sounds at home and you take them to the gig in your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can give this to the sound man. Here, change my tones if you want. Just take my phone and you can do it from out there. And I don't have to do anything.
Very nice. Very nice.
Simplified. It's in one box. It's in that box. I take that and my bassist to the gig with the chords and a bass stand, and there I go.
Very, very cool. Well, and as you're mentioning Sound Madness stuff, we should talk a little bit about plans. What do you have in the works? What's coming down the pike?
Well, we just finished some gigs with Skunk, and back in June, we filmed a concert special for PBS. They have a series called Recorded Live at the Analog, which is a place in Nashville, like a showcase room. And that special comes out October 4th on PBS. And if you have Passport, you can stream it right away if your station doesn't carry it. And the Speed of Heat album, which is Skunk's solo album that came out a while back, is getting reissued the end of September. That's this month, with narration. Because during the show, he'll tell stories about how the song came about and stories about life, as Skunk Baxter, and people really dig that. So he did some narrations for the songs for this next album. Well, the re-release of the album. And then they're working on some dates for late fall. And then we're on a, Legends of Rock cruise in February.
Oh.
Going out with some of our friends, because I worked with the guys in Styx individually and collectively. So Styx is on it, Alice Cooper, Blackberry Smoke, Don Felder, us, John Waite. There's probably a lot more. Nice. And that goes from Miami to the Bahamas and back. So I told Skunk, I said, I think there's going to be some cross-pollination going on between the bands because everybody knows everybody's stuff and knows them, So that'll be a lot of fun.
Very, very cool. And for those that want to keep track or maybe catch you when you're on tour or on the cruise, best place to look would be hankhorton.com.
Yeah, you can click on upcoming shows and it'll take you to Skunk's website as well and Detroit Symphony's website, which are pretty much the two that I do now, except for, some club dates and some recording things around Michigan, which is where I am. But yeah, and Skunk's Facebook page is a great way to find that too. Gotcha. There's always something interesting he's putting up there from a long time ago or something brand new. And there's a lot of YouTube things of us live, that people have taken. Some of the places have really good recording equipment. And so there's some good stuff out there.
Nice.
And not just camera phone.
There we go. And on YouTube, it's the Digital Hank, right?
Yes, correct. And there's a link to that on my website down on the left. And you can see Cirque videos and all kinds of stuff, And, I wanted to tell you, because I noticed that you followed Cirque du Soleil. And that's, there's a whole bunch of audition videos for them that you probably dig on there. And also, I have an MP3 page. And the first thing on the MP3 page is a Jocko tribute concert that I did in Chicago a few years back with a 25-piece band, just like the Word of Mouth band. And we had Peter Graves, who was Jocko's music director, brought the Word of Mouth band charts, and we played from those charts. And we recorded it, and that's on the page. The other person on the bill that night was Charlie Hayden.
Oh, Charlie.
And I saw something on your website that said this, but the title of the concert was called The Face of Bass.
Yeah.
And that's what's on the poster that I have for that, So that was a bass player's dream that night to do
Wow.
that stuff and then play with Charlie and stuff. So yeah,
Wow.
just wanted to point that out. There's a lot of other stuff on the MP3 page. There's some songs I've recorded with sticks and some other things. So a lot of cool stuff.
Very nice.
And
Hank,
I'm not selling anything on there either.
ooh, excellent. Excellent. Folks, you know where to go. Go to hankhorton.com. Anyway, Hank, we appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule to chat with us. It's very exciting stuff. The amp sounds amazing. I definitely want to take a closer look myself because, again, we're always looking, for that perfect amp. And this one sounds like it could pretty much cover anything you want to do with it. So that's superb.
Yeah, and I interrupted myself when I told you when I got the amp, I hooked it up. I got the app going and the amp going, and it really only took me a couple of hours to get to the point where I was programming, and maybe another hour to find the sound for the acoustic. And so pretty much in a day, I programmed a whole bunch of sounds for my basses. So it's really not that difficult. If I can do it, you can do it.
Good to know, Hank. Good to know. Well, folks, you've seen him here on Bass Musician Magazine, Hank Horton.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.